What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick podcast. I'm the host, Devin. Sign is over there, if I can get that right. Sherdog.com is the website, and we're here to talk about some fights. Pretty bad weekend of MMA. I guess there was one standout knockout of the year. However, I understand why the Saudis did not want this card and said, no. We had Jairzinho Rozenstruik defeating Shamil. First, he was Gaziev. Now he was Gaziev. I don't know. Hope all of you guys had a good week. I was just prepping, getting my notes together, and I was listening to I think it's the first release album from A$AP Rocky, Live Love A$AP. Pretty good album. Pretty slept on hip hop. With a Southern type thing. Neither here nor there. We're here to talk about fights, not music. And we're going to go ahead and just start the show off out with the old first segment of the show. Jairzinho Rozenstruik defeats Shamil Gaziev in a very weird this fight just sucked. And I watched the prelims, and then I went out and did some stuff, and I came back and played catch up and watched the whole card, which is great when you can kind of just speed through stuff. You can fast forward through all the nonsense in between the fights. I didn't even watch the walkouts. Shout out to Mark Goddard for bringing in the interpreter and saying, what did he say? Because Gaziev was in the corner saying, I can't see. Takedown attempts, terrible. I mean, I could shoot a better takedown than Gaziev. He was huge. He was bigger than Jairzinho, but Jairzinho's jab, within the first 2 minutes of the first round, kind of had Gaziev buzzed up. He didn't have anything. He didn't have any plan B. He had no way to get around the jab. Jairzinho does have a good jab. He's a big, strong puncher. And his corner was telling him, Gaziev's corner was telling him it's 2-2. Come on, get back out there. But they couldn't convince him. His spirit was broken. One of those, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got similar treatment. But do you guys remember Max Roshkov? I think that's how you pronounce his name, Roshkov, the dude that was highly touted. I think he's a New England guy. Highly touted prospect, came in and he was fighting Austin Hubbard, and he told his corner, I'm done. I can't go out there anymore. I give up. This isn't for me. I believe he went on to still take more MMA pro fights. However, the UFC is like, we want guys that want to fight. And I mean, just a little bit of an insight for you guys about my professional life outside of Sherdog. I am a manager for a bank in a specific department. And I run a team of people. And if they show up to work and they don't want to work, don't be here if you don't want to work. If you're not going to come and give 100%, and obviously not every day you can give 100%, but for Gaziev and Roshkov and those situations, like you showed up to work, you weren't ready to work. That's what PTO is for. Call out, don't show up. And that's what Gaziev did. He pulled hey, I got a bellyache. I think I'm gonna head out early. He said he couldn't see. I don't know if it was the jab. I don't know if it was fatigue. It's probably all of the above. His plan not working. His takedowns were just horrendous. He couldn't even drop down below Jairzinho's waist. He did get that one single leg takedown in the second round. Jairzinho was able to get up from it. I don't know if all of a sudden Jairzinho has a good get up game and good takedown defense, or if Gaziev is just bad. I was completely wrong. I picked him via first round finish. I thought he was going to go in there, take Rozenstruik down, and maybe it looked something like the Jailton Almeida fight. Wasn't. Bad fight. Jairzinho just holds his place in the rankings, and I'm cool with that. We got a trend lately, right? Jack Hermanson just did the same thing to Joe Pyfer. This fight really reminded me of the Abus Magomedov versus Sean Strickland fight, where one decent round, little resistance and just crash and burn. The Gaziev that came in and fought Martin Budai was not the dude that fought Jairzinho. I don't know if he was worried about his power. Maybe he got touched with something. But, I mean, if you let Jairzinho just command the octagon, and he is a back foot counterpuncher. Jairzinho is a dude that is dangerous up against the cage. But even in this fight, Jairzinho, I mean, dude, you got a guy in front of you that doesn't want to be in there. Like, just go step on the gas. Your mom is there. Your dad is there. They're in the tiny Apex crowd holding up, flags from Suriname. Like, dude, go out there. And I mean, this is your sixth main event. I don't understand how he's had so many main events. He's had more main events than any current UFC champion. And he's just willing to, take the front foot when it's beneficial to him, stick you at the jab, cut the angles, use his footwork and stay on the outside. I can't blame the dude. It is what it is. Gaziev needs a major step back. Where's Chris Dalkhouse when you need him? And for Jairzinho, I don't know. I don't know what he does next. Maybe fight some random up and comer, or maybe he fights like Derek Lewis. That makes a lot of sense. Or maybe he fights the loser of Tuivasa and gosh, why can't I think of his name? Whatever. Heavyweight is just, gosh. The stark differences between guys like Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich and Jailton Almeida and these, it's just like, you got divisions like bantamweight and lightweight where, we're going to talk about Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint Denis, where, guys that are in the rankings from 10 to 15 could easily bump up and, win a fight against someone that's in the top 5, but not a heavyweight. No. Mm-mm. Yeah, the difference between Tommy Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich and John Jones and Jairzinho Rozenstruik is like, you can't even talk about them in the same sentence. Moving on down the card, we're going to skip the co-main event. Victor Petrino wins a fight. Tyson Pedro retires. See ya, bud. Mokaev did defeat Perez, however, in a very Muhammad Mokaev type fight. He goes out there, wins the first round, had some trouble with the takedowns, loses the second round, and then goes out there and wins the third round. Impressive, really nice suplex. Muhammad Mokaev is a good fighter. He is just, again, and this is what I talked about going into this fight, he has that young veteran mentality where, like, if he's not like facing extreme adversities, he's just not out there stepping on the gas on people. If he goes out there and fights Pantoja next, he's going to lose, but whatever. Maybe a loss. And I think a loss here would have benefited his career moving forward, but now he's talking about a title fight with Pantoja, and it probably makes the most sense because Manel Kape is posting pictures on our social media saying, I'm going to be ready for UFC 301 in Brazil. Dude, Manel Kape, you can't make weight, brother. If you could just make weight once and win a fight, the last time you made weight, you had a war with the short notice opponent that's coming off a loss now. Brandon Royval has lost via submission and lost via dominant decision to Pantoja. Pantoja's beaten Moreno. Amir Albazi's been, his neck's broken. Kai Kara France he needs to win a fight. Bring back Kyoji Horiguchi, I guess. I don't know what the state of the flyweight division. It was peaking with Figgy and Moreno and the Pantoja and the wings, but like and I love flyweights. I think it's one of these guys are so skilled, but Muhammad Mokaev is like, and maybe it's just a time. In 3 months, this could all be different. But right now, Muhammad Mokaev is like kind of the number one contender in a weird effed up way. He wants the fight. Brandon Royval is tweeting saying, you don't deserve it. You barely won this fight. Brandon Royval is saying Perez won. It's hard to argue as a fan. It's hard to argue that Royval deserves this, even though he did just beat Moreno. There's so many asterisks with the Moreno fight. I low-key think he lost that fight. He's already lost twice to Pantoja. Just make Muhammad Mokaev versus Pantoja. Put it as the co-main event of the UFC 301 in Brazil. Not a lot to say here. Mokaev, he's a great positional grappler. He's got decent takedowns, but he's just not venomous anywhere. Like that Cody Durden fight is more and more seeming like a one-off where he looked super venomous in that fight. And then he's just, I don't know, a slight step up in competition and and again, we're going to talk about dudes like Benoit Saint Denis where, he's looked venomous as they've moved him up in the rankings. I just can't really say the same about Muhammad Mokaev. He's a win. He got to win. That's what you need. Get your dub and move on. And he's got a lot of hype. UFC seems to like the kid. Whatever. It's flyweight. Make the fight. We're going to move on to the rest of the card. I'm kind of ripping through this recap, guys, just because UFC 299 is this weekend. We got Francis Ngannou fighting Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia and boxing. And I feel like I myself and you guys care about that stuff, the meat and potatoes. And this is just like the cold soup. So real quick, we're going to touch on Umar Nurmagomedov. He keeps his perfect record after getting buzzed up, clipped, dropped in the first round, and then is still winning a 30-25 on a scorecard. Umar's good. Everyone gets hit. It's MMA. Anybody can get clipped up. Getting clipped by a highly touted prospect that was looking to be on the Contender Series next year that has a good record and is dangerous. No one is impregnable. Anyone can get touched in this sport. And for him to get lumped like that, show some recoverability, and go on to win an extremely dominant fight. Shout out to him. Steve Erceg, a dude that I had not a lot of confidence in coming into the UFC. I put this in the Sherdog Slack. Does Steve Erceg have the punching power to be a 4-1 favorite over Matt Schnell? And he fucking does. He's good. You remove the rankings and stuff. I'd rather watch Erceg fight for a title at this point because Erceg is out there murking fools. That was dope as fuck. It was a really, really fun fight. They're just trading in the pocket. Matt Schnell, he could go on a big losing streak. UFC, if you're listening to this, never cut Matt Schnell. Danger's his name. Danger's the game. And it's always fun as fuck to watch. Violence, Vinicius Oliveira, that jump knee knockout of Sopai is going to probably win 2024 knockout of the year on our Sherdog Awards at the end of the year. Sopai had a great first round. He's undersized, took this fight on short notice, and was kind of schooling Oliveira through the first round, first 6.5 minutes of the fight. Then all of a sudden he started to flag. Oliveira got a reversal, got on top, landed some shots. It was like a sailboat on an ocean, getting a straight north wind. And then all of a sudden winds died down, south wind, and it just turned the boat completely around. The way he lined up that jump knee, Sopai was kind of gassed, shelled up against the cage a bit, reeled back. And the way that Oliveira just landed that jump knee, that jumping scissor knee, was fucking violent. Sopai just face planted into the canvas. Took him quite a while to get up. It was like, whenever you see someone faceplant fall forward and they don't have the ability to catch themselves, you almost want to watch through your fingers. But dope as fuck. He got $50K for that, and they got fight of the night. So, shout out to him. He's probably made more You think he was in on a 9-9 or a 10-10 contract, maybe 12-12. We'll give him benefit of the doubt, 12-12. So he just made $124,000. That's probably more money than he's ever made in his MMA career in total up until this point. Especially, in those backyard Brazilian fights where they're fighting over, I don't know, a bike. Who knows? So yeah, Vinicius Oliveira, big shout out to you. I had to talk about you on the show today. We're going to go ahead and move on to the second segment of the show, What's Hot, and I'll be back in a second. Moving on to the middle segment of the show, What's Hot, we have Anthony Joshua fighting Francis Ngannou. And the reason why this fight is on this segment and not on some sort of analysis and breakdown is, number one, I really kind of want to talk about these promo packages that they're putting together for this fight. Pretty cool. And then I just want to kind of talk about the fight and what it means for both guys. So the promo packages on this for this fight are just cool. Like, I wish the UFC could do something like this. And I think, number one, this promo package is based out of necessity because they only have the Tyson Fury fight to go off of when it comes to tape. And it's just cool. Like, there's a double knockout scene there. They got the whole Street Fighter thing. They just did a really, really good job. I wish UFC could kind of take a page out of this, take a page out of this book and do something like this. I thought the whole entire promo was really, really cool. For Francis, what this fight means is number one, it means he's not fighting in the PFL. I hate to break it to anyone that thinks Francis is going to fight in the PFL. Ain't going to happen. Last week when we had the PFL Bellator card, and Renan Ferreira knocked out Ryan Bader, they seemed like they were expecting Ngannou to come into the cage and do some sort of face-off. They were saying Ngannou was like, yeah, I'll fight the winner of this. But especially, I mean, if he goes out there and loses violently, he gets like flatlined by Anthony Joshua, which is, I find it very unlikely, because something that, we always speak about Francis's power, but we don't really speak about his durability. The dude's just, Francis is built to fight. But if he gets knocked out violently by Anthony Joshua, and this fight's going to be on Friday, by the way, this coming Friday, the 8th. If he gets knocked out by Joshua, maybe he takes a year off. The dude's getting paid millions and millions of dollars. So I again, and I keep saying this over and over again. He fought Cyril Gahn with 2 knee pads on. He had 2 blown up knees. He's had reconstructive surgery on both of his knees. A whole entire 12-week camp, a boxing camp for Francis Ngannou, is probably easier on his body than 1 week of just training wrestling and MMA, just because the dude is 6'4". He's over 260 pounds. He's a huge man. He's had reconstructive surgery on both of his knees. And when you're that big, he's getting towards 40. When you get that big, wrestling is very difficult. It takes a big toll on your body. Even though Renan Ferreira would not probably plan to come wrestle him, it's still MMA training. It's just different. It's going to be a little bit more rigorous than a boxing camp. And I don't think the PFL can afford to pay Francis. I think Francis kind of hit them with the highway robbery for whatever money he's taken from them already, because I don't think the PFL can afford a Francis Ngannou fight purse. They have their celebrity league, whatever it is, with Jake Paul. Jake Paul's not going to ever fight under the PFL banner. PFL got bamboozled with this, in my opinion. The Serrano sisters, Jake Paul just literally beat a cab driver this weekend, and Amanda Serrano was supposed to be the highlight of this card in Puerto Rico, back home, and that shit couldn't even happen because it's boxing. You think that this is going to happen under the PFL banner? I'll be damned, and I'll come here and eat crow if the PFL ever has Jake Paul fight on it, or Amanda Serrano, or Francis Ngannou. It ain't going to happen. PFL got bamboozled by these boxers, in my opinion, and good for them. Good for these boxers, signing these contracts and making this coin. Anthony Joshua, what this means for him is he's kind of in, he got beat up by Usyk pretty bad twice in a row. Fury is fighting Usyk, and if he goes out there and knocks out Francis Ngannou, especially if Fury beats Usyk, which it's likely he might, it's a 50-50 fight in my opinion. If Fury goes out there and beats Usyk and captures all the belts, and Anthony Joshua goes out there and beats Francis Ngannou in any way, in my opinion, look at the way that Fury just beat him. Yeah, Fury looks like he didn't take Ngannou seriously to his detriment, and he still won that fight by the skin of his teeth. But it just makes all the sense in the world. This is a huge money fight. Francis Ngannou, he's with one pro boxing fight out of a loss. He's ranked in the top 10 in the world at heavyweight boxing, and outside of Fury, Francis Ngannou might be the biggest. Joshua, Fury, and Ngannou are like the three biggest names in heavyweight boxing. If you're not a boxing fan and you're just like scrolling through social media and you see a picture of Francis Ngannou holding up some combat sports belt on TMZ or something, you're going to know exactly who that dude is. You're going to go, oh, that's a big, giant UFC fighter guy. That's Francis Ngannou. If you see a picture of Alexander Usyk, you might not know who he is. Obviously, us, you guys, me, combat sports people, we know damn well who Alexander Usyk is, but we might not be able to pick, the casual fans, they might not be able to pick him out of a crowd. Francis Ngannou, oh yeah, they're picking him out of a crowd. So huge fight for both guys. Big risk for Joshua. I think Joshua is definitely taking the bigger risk here. Obviously, Joshua's going to be favored to win this fight, but Francis Ngannou clearly showed he can hurt anybody. And Joshua looked great his last time out, but we all know what kind of fight that was. Joshua's a dude that's been knocked out. He's been buzzed, smaller, lesser punchers, better boxers, and Andy Ruiz have finished Joshua. Joshua's been hurt a lot. Francis Ngannou could definitely finish him. And if anyone can finish Francis, it could be someone like Joshua, a big, powerful puncher that is fairly slick, very technical, and is going to be able to put stuff together and probably go for it. I think both of these guys are going to go for it in this fight. Francis showed in his last fight he had cardio to go all the rounds. He looked good. And this is going to be a huge fight. I'm happy for boxing this is happening, and I'm really happy for Francis. I kind of poo-pooed Francis for the way he left the UFC, and I'll eat crow. I was wrong there. He secured the bag, got his money, and shout out to the Saudis for putting this fight on, putting this badass promo package on. I'm here for it. It's just a stacked weekend of combat sports, and this Ngannou versus Joshua is just a little cherry on top. It's the nice chocolate cake after you eat that steak and potato meal. All right, guys. Now we're here to talk about what everyone's here to listen for. You probably even fast forwarded up to this point. Wouldn't blame you if you did. We're here to talk about UFC 299 and with the new final segment of the show. Bunch of good ass fights. I don't even have the time allotted to talk to you guys about all the great fights on this card. We're going to just talk about the whole main card from start to finish. First fight on the card, we have Song Yadong taking on Petr Yan. Odds on this fight, Petr Yan is a slight favorite, -120. You can get him at -115 in a couple places, and Song Yadong is at +100 or -105 at some places. So, I mean, by the end of this week, this could shift. This might close as a damn near pick'em. This is a pick'em in my opinion. Great fucking fight. Petr Yan is a guy that's coming off of 3 losses and still one of the best bantamweights in the world, in my opinion. The run he was on. Yeah, he lost to Magomedov, but that was back in 2016. Prior to that, the dude was on a hellacious run through the UFC, beating the shit out of Aljamain Sterling. We all know that. We all know what happened there. You know, the knee, whatever. Went out there and, you know, and it wasn't 2021, but it was at the end of 2021 where he kind of shit kicked Corey Sandhagen. Dropped him, hurt him, defended the takedowns, beat him to the punch, just outclassed Corey Sandhagen. And then in the Aljo rematch, he lost via split, but kind of arguably won. And then he went out there and lost another split to the current champion, Sean O'Malley, where O'Malley looked great and that win has aged well. But like, you know, minus the actual facial damage, like he probably won that fight and he probably should have won that fight. And then last time out, Merab Dvalishvili. Merab's just going to make everyone look bad at this point. I think Merab is the best bantamweight on the planet. You know, it's just Merab. He's becoming an anomaly. But the dude is, Petr Yan is very good. What does he do good? Everything. He does everything well. Great puncher in the pocket, good kicks. He has good takedowns, but he's not much of a control grappler. It's more of like a very Muay Thai. You could definitely tell he does his camps over at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand because he's a very, very catch a kick, sweep type, you know, trips and sweeps type takedowns, and he'll more or less just kind of shuck his opponents to the ground, kind of almost to like demoralize them and break their will. It's pretty interesting. He's a good defensive boxer. He's, you know, high guard. He'll roll with punches, but that does leave him, you know, open for body shots and leg kicks. He doesn't check kicks very well. But I think also that's just, again, a Merab anomaly where, you know, once Merab gets rolling downhill, everything just becomes effective. He's just got this weird thing about him. Song Yadong is still very, very young, and I think that's something that gets overlooked because he's, you know, been in the UFC for so damn long. He's still only 26 years old. He's coming off of a decision to Chris Gutierrez. I think his most impressive performance was that Ricky Simone fight where he knocked him out in the 5th round. Prior to that, he did lose that TKO doctor stoppage to Corey Sandhagen in a fight that was, you know, kind of tit for tat close, but Corey did better work all throughout. And then, you know, he did knock out Marlon Moraes, but yeah. And then the head kick of Julio Arce was really, you know, really impressive. He has lost to dudes that are even on this card. He's lost to Kyler Phillips. He's fought Cheeto. The guy's fought a lot of people. Like he's got a lot of good names. And for someone that's so young, especially at bantamweight, he's, you know, put in his work. Comes from a good camp. He has good takedowns himself. He has good power in the pocket. He's not really defensively sound, but he has that young man's grit and attitude where, like, in the pocket, he'll mix it up with anybody because he's just so fucking, I mean, he probably is the harder puncher than Yan, but he's not as crafty. Offensively with the striking is not nearly as crafty as Petr Yan. This is one of those fights where, man, Petr Yan is, you know, he's been backed into a corner here. And is he going to be like, you know, is he going to be like a pit bull when you back him into a corner? Is he going to lash out and bite and strike, or is he going to crumble and wilt? You know, is he that person that was used and abused? And he's taken a lot of damage, but removing the Merab fight, you know, Petr Yan has still looked really, really good. His problems are if he's not getting clipped up and buzzed, he's just willing to make reads. And I think he's much more of a 5-round fighter than a 3-round fighter. And in 3 rounds, if Song Yadong, it's most likely Song Yadong is going to go out there and win the first round. And when you got in a 3-round fight, when you can automatically give someone one of the rounds, whether it be the first or the last, it's kind of, if we were talking about Merab here, we'd say, well, we don't know how the first two are going to go, but we can guarantee Merab's going to win the last. And we could probably guarantee that Jan is going to try to make his reads, shell up, use his high guard, make his reads, find his openings. More than likely, they'll probably lose the first round of this fight. So then you're banking on, okay, a dude that is going to probably lose the first round, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next two in a 3-round fight. However, I think Song Yadong is good, but I still think Petr Yan is really good. And I could be completely proven wrong. Petr Yan, he's 32? Let me check that. You can find this information on Sherdog.com. He's 31. He just turned 30. He just turned 31. Freaking less than a month ago. When I pick these fights, I do my analysis, my little tape study. I look through records. I formulate my idea, my notes, but I actually don't know who I'm going to pick until I start talking about it. Sometimes I know who I'm going to pick already. I know, like when Ilia Topuria knocked out Alexander Volkanovski 6 months ago, I was texting a friend of mine saying, hey, Ilia Topuria is going to knock out Volk when he fights for the title. I'm not always right, but I will hold on to that. I was right there. This one I'm not as confident on nearly, but I'm going to lean Petr Yan. I think, and you don't want to, MMA math doesn't work. However, Song Yadong is durable, but being durable doesn't mean that he's not defensively porous. And I do think someone like Petr Yan can make reads, land the better shots. And Petr Yan is also very, very tough. We don't, Sean O'Malley buzzed him up a bit, but he also, equally buzzed him up. I think he has more tools. He's got better kicks. He's got good boxing. The way that Petr Yan can switch stance, close the distance, and, land big combos. Give me Petr Yan, but I'm not confident. Moving on, just bumping up one more fight up the card, an incredible fight at welterweight. We've got an old dog facing a new up-and-comer, and that's kind of the theme of this card in a way. We have JDM, Jack Della Maddalena, fighting Gilbert Durinho Burns. Burns, the slight underdog here. He's coming in at plus 150. JDM is at minus 166. Gotta love both these guys. Gilbert Burns is 37. He's going to turn 38 in a couple months. JDM, definitely the younger dude at 27. There's a 10-year age gap here. JDM is on a 16-fight win streak after losing his first 2 professional MMA bouts. Also, both of those were via finish. Not many dudes get finished twice and continue to proceed on. I'm going to assume one of those dudes is the dude that made his nose look the way it is. Shout out to him for never fixing it. He's probably just like, fuck it, I'll wait until I'm retired from MMA to fix my nose, because who knows? Or maybe he'll go and do the Dricus du Plessis thing, fix his nose, and become world champion. Who the fuck knows? He's fighting Gilbert Burns. Both of these guys, man. Gilbert Burns is coming off of a loss to Bilal Muhammad. That was a short notice 5-round fight where he went to decision. He was injured that whole entire fight. Bilal Muhammad is Bilal Muhammad, and it was a very Bilal Muhammad fight. But, it was a forgettable fight. Prior to that, he kind of beat up Jorge Masvidal pretty bad, hurt him, out-wrestled him, finished Neil Magny. That loss to Khamzat Chimaev is what kind of put Gilbert Burns on the map for a lot of people that are like semi-casuals, where he went to war with Khamzat. They both freaking scrapped it out, and incredible fight, probably fight of the year in 2022. Before that, he beat Wonder Boy. Prior to that, he did get knocked out in his title fight against Kamaru Usman. That's when Usman was streaking, and he buzzed up Usman real bad in the first round and almost finished him. Before that, he beat Tyron Woodley, and that one-shot knockout of Demian Maia was incredible. The win over Gunnar Nelson was great, throwing him all over the place. And then his welterweight debut in the UFC was against Alexei Kunchenko. Gilbert Burns is a guy that's very, very good. During his UFC run as a 55er, he goes and wins a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion tournament. he's in the UFC cutting down to 55, training, and became a world champion. He's a multiple-time world champion, BJJ practitioner, very, very high-level black belt. JDM is a guy that, you know, he's coming off of 2 split decisions. The fight against Basil Hafez, he had to cut weight twice in a row. And then Basil came and showed up and showed out. And then he has that split decision against Kevin Holland in his latest fight. Before that, he club and sub Randy Brown, crushed him when Randy Brown was trying to circle the outside of the octagon, crushed him and dropped him. But he was kind of losing that fight up until that moment. But that's Randy Brown. That's what you do to Randy Brown. Looked really good up through there. You know, he beat Ange Lusa on the Contender Series, knocked out Pete Rodriguez, but who doesn't? I guess Mike Jackson's the only dude that doesn't knock out Pete Rodriguez. Beat Ramazan Ameev, knocked out Danny Roberts, knocked out Randy Brown. But the second he kind of had that move up in competition where he fought that Kevin Holland, it was a split decision. And, you know, close fight. It was a Kevin Holland fight. Kevin Holland could have probably done more. I'm pretty surprised, even though Gilbert Burns is coming off of an injury, that shoulder injury to Bilal Muhammad. He did an interview this week on an unnamed podcast where he was talking about how he went down to South America, got a bunch of stem cells injected and didn't get surgery. But he says that his left hand, his left hand is more powerful than ever. He feels stronger with it than ever. That's good to hear. He is older. However, he does train, with Henry Hooft at Killcliff, where he, some of the best welterweights in the world are out of that gym. Usman was out of that gym. Jason Jackson, the ass-kicking machine, the current Bellator, PFL, whatever, welterweight champion, who's very, very fucking good. Grew up training with Douglas Lima. We're going to talk about that. Actually, maybe it wasn't the Limas. Yeah, whatever. Vincente Luque, tons of great training partners, especially for welterweights down there. Shavkat Rakhmonov. So this dude, Gilbert Burns was saying like, hey, I played Ray Cooper for Jason Jackson's short camp, and I went and gave him hard rounds. Like, the interviewer asked him, hey, how do you feel competing? And he said, I'm still keeping up with these guys that are contenders in my gym, in my weight class. I'm still doing well. So that's a good sign. Gilbert Burns is a guy that he's not as dynamic of a puncher and as a selective of a puncher as Jack Della Maddalena, but he's definitely the harder puncher. Gilbert Burns, he fucking cracks. He hurts. He can hurt. He could knock out anyone at welterweight. But besides that, he's a very, very high level BJJ guy that like actually knows how to wrestle. Like he has good entries. He's fast. He is a much more short and stout guy, but he does use that to his advantage. He does like to dirty box. He has a good overhook, good dirty boxing in the clinch. Jack Della Maddalena, good footwork, pressuring footwork. His best asset, in my opinion, is his body punching. But I don't think his fight IQ is there. I think he has a little bit of a lower fight IQ. Against Basil Hafez, it showed if his offense doesn't start to become very successful, he kind of just starts doing weird shit. Like he was jumping guillotines and stuff like that. And Basil was known to be a BJJ guy. He starts jumping guillotine and shit on Gilbert Burns. It's fucking lights out. I don't think Jack Della Maddalena, he is on a 16-fight win streak. And maybe if those first 2 fights didn't happen and he was 16-0, maybe my opinion about him would be different. But his last 2 fights showed me his level. And I'd pick Gilbert Burns to probably finish Kevin Holland and probably definitely finish Basil Hafez and finish anyone else that Jack Della Maddalena has beaten. I think the dogs are barking on this one here. Gilbert Burns could come in and show up and look like he's 37 years old. And Jack Della Maddalena is a power puncher. Gilbert Burns is a dude that, he did get clipped up and hurt by Usman, but then he went to war with Khamzat Chimaev after. And I mean, Khamzat is a very hard puncher. Ask Gerald Mearshart about that. But I just think this is an old dog fight. Give me Gilbert Burns to unexpectedly lump up Jack Della Maddalena in certain situations. And he just has more tools to win this fight. Like, he can mix in the takedowns with his boxing. uses takedowns to open up his hands. He's got big power, big, powerful overhands, big left hook, tight left hook. Yeah, I think JDM might bite off a little more than he can chew here, especially if he starts jumping guillotine and shit. If it looks like the Basil Hafez fight where JDM and Gilbert Burns start brawling against the cage and, it doesn't start going his way, and then Gilbert Burns enters a takedown and JDM jumps guillotine. Yeah, you don't want to be jumping guillotine against Gilbert freaking Burns. Give me Gilbert Burns as the upset. Moving on to potentially, I don't want to call this fight of the night when we got the co-main event, but we got a guy making his UFC debut. Yes, he's a little bit older, but we've got Kevin Holland taking on MVP Michael Venom Page, a trailblazer versus MVP. Kevin Holland is a slight favorite in this bout, -135. MVP is coming in at +114. A lot of tight odds up until, the main event and the co-main, which are a little bit interesting in my opinion. MVP making his debut in the UFC at 36 years old. He is coming off of a leg kick TKO against Gyoti Yamaguchi. That was back in May of 2023 in Bellator. He did lose that split to Logan Storley. Prior to that, he beat Douglas Lima via split decision. This dude's a walking highlight reel. That's his thing. Absolutely flatline overmatch competition, and then have good fights with guys that he's closely matched with. Anyone that is as good as him, or as close to as good as him, they're not the violent knockouts. He got knocked out, leg kicked, fell to the ground, and then uppercutted by Douglas Lima. That was when Douglas Lima was streaking. I was calling him one of the best welterweights in the world. That dude fell off a fucking cliff. He is gone. Nobody knows where he's at now. But against guys like Logan Storley that, have games that match up well, or even, Paul Daly, guys that are, almost as good as him, the fights don't look the same. That Cyborg Santos jump knee, though, his head is still probably dented. Kevin Holland is another guy that it's interesting because MVP is going to be the taller, lankier dude than most guys in the division. He's right up there with Randy Brown, but Kevin Holland is it's just going to be like a mirror match when it comes to length. And I think Kevin Holland probably has a longer reach. Kevin Holland has an 80+ inch reach. Kevin Holland coming off a split decision loss to JDM. We just talked about Jack Della Maddalena. Prior to that, he kind of beat the fucking shit out of Michael Chiesa and Bravo choked him after clubbing him and making him panic. Knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio. Had a war with Wonder Boy and broke his hand in that fight. Fought like a dumbass. Kevin Holland is a dude, real quick. He's a Travis Lutter black belt, but he claims to be a kung fu fighter, which is just funny. It's just Kevin Holland. He's just a weird freaking dude. He crime fights on the weekends. He beats up shoplifters, and he's just such a strange fellow. But he is a dude that he got a rep as being a bad grappler when he was up at 185. But I just don't think that dynamic's the same at welterweight. I just don't think he's going to be getting out wrestled by tons and tons of dudes at welterweight. And he was getting entries and getting takedowns on Wonderboy Thompson. A couple of days ago, he posted on his social media saying that he won't be taken down, or said that he will be taking down MVP here, that he, everyone's saying that he probably won't wrestle, but he might. Kevin Holland is just a weird guy. A weird guy. He, the knockout of Joaquin Buckley, he's got a very, very long 1-2. His right hand down the pike, it's almost like if he steps into the pocket, steps into range and throws a 1-2, it's almost like he can cover half the fucking cage. And I believe this fight will be in the bigger octagon, which is going to probably kind of benefit both dudes. Crafty puncher look what he did to Jacare. He can, he's very long and he has that long man's whipping, like that bullwhip power. Good submissions. Again, he's a Travis Lutter black belt. MVP fights out of this bladed karate stance, hands down next to his sides, really, really relies on head movement. Anybody that can stick MVP with a jab and pressure him against the cage and have prolonged pocket exchanges with him, in my opinion, is going to have success. A boxer like a Jack Della Maddalena or even like a Gilbert Burns, someone that can just close the distance. What MVP does really well is, number one, he's just, his timing is fucking impeccable. For a 36-year-old fighter, he's got incredible head movement, impeccable timing. His jump knee of Cyborg Santos, he can close the distance. If he stings you with a jab, his very, very bladed. He'll sting you with a jab, see how you react, and then his ability to just close the distance and jump into range and land violent shit is just incredible. Good slick boxing, even though it's not really boxing, it's much more of a karate style, but he's a very good counter puncher. If you overextend on shots in front of him, he'll snipe you. I think if Kevin Holland comes in with the same gentleman's agreement type fight that he took with Wonderboy, he could potentially lose this. However, Kevin Holland's never been knocked out. The only time I have ever seen Kevin Holland hurt upstairs, I mean, he took like a million spinning wheel kicks from Wonderboy. And yeah, he was beat up, but like it was more of, injury, is when him and Kyle Dalkaus was a major clash of heads. And that was like, two bowling balls. Boom. So yeah, that's going to hurt anyone. Don't give a fuck who you are. But besides that, I mean, Kevin Holland is a dude that he's got a good top game. He's not a good defensive wrestler, but on top, good elbows. Look what he did to Kyle Oliveira. He's got, if he hurts you and you start shooting desperation takedowns, you're going to get anaconda or Bravo choke. That's his thing. Yeah, he's going to lose to guys against like Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson. Those dudes are huge. Those dudes are like 35, 40 pounds, heavier than him. And he did clip up and buzz Marvin Vettori in their fights. He's knocked out dudes like Fluffy Hernandez. He's beaten dudes like Gerald Mearshart. Thiago fucking Santos in 2018 at 185 was an absolute wrecking ball. That was Kevin Holland's introduction into the UFC, and he was taking Thiago Santos' best shots. Love MVP to death, but he's dangerous. MVP is very dangerous, but he doesn't hit as hard as Thiago Santos. Much better timing, and that's kind of how he's wins here. But Kevin Holland is a dude that has all the tools to be so good in this division. It just depends on how he wants to win this fight. Again, if he has that stupid gentleman's agreement where we're just going to have a shootout and we're going to see how the cards fall, this gives MVP much more of a chance to win this fight. But even just striking, Kevin Holland is so big and long. I could totally see him just exposing MVP, especially if he forces MVP on the back foot. That is where MVP, has shown weaknesses. If you jab MVP up, and mind you, MVP has been fighting in a circular cage. The octagon has a little bit more corners to it. If Kevin Holland can stick him with a jab, push him against the cage, maybe mix in some takedowns. Kevin Holland is really, really good in the clinch, really, really good in close quarters. He gets an overhook on you. He's hitting you with some dirty boxing. Ask Jacare Souza how that goes. I think Kevin Holland's more durable. I think Kevin Holland has more tools to win this fight, especially if he mixes in his grappling. Give me Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland with the with his head on straight, I think he wins this fight. And if MVP wins, they're just going to start fucking surging this dude up to the top because, I'm excited about MVP coming into the UFC. Even though he's 36, who gives a shit? The UFC is making the right fights. He loses this fight, who cares? MVP is going to go two ways for him. He wins this fight, they're going to just fucking skyrocket him up to the titles. If he wins this fight, they're going to offer him Bilal Muhammad, which is hilarious and effed up. He loses this fight, it's just all fun fights and it's all who gives a shit fights. If he loses this fight, they're probably going to put him in just like fights against dudes that he's way overmatched, like Danny Brown. And stuff like that, which is fine by me. They'll put him in against, just scrubs so he can ice him, and that's cool too. So it can go either way for MVP. And if he loses this fight, it's not catastrophic failure for his career either. But Kevin Holland's a pick. All right, guys. Co-main event here. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Benoit, God of War, Saint Denis. We have a man from Louisiana with a French name versus an actual Frenchman. Look, if you're listening to the show, you know who Dustin Poirier is. And if you're listening to the show, you probably know who Benoit Saint Denis is. And if you don't, you will soon, because both of these guys are incredible fighters. Benoit Saint Denis, dude, that is absolutely fucking streaking. Real quick, odds on the fight. Saint Denis is a pretty heavy favorite, minus 205. Dustin Poirier is coming back at plus 170. Dustin Poirier, he's the only dude to finish Max Holloway. Only person to ever finish Max Holloway. That may change, but maybe not. Only dude to knock out Conor McGregor. Only dude to submit Michael Chandler. Dustin Poirier has fought fucking everybody. Everybody. Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, Cub Swanson, Conor McGregor, Diego Ferreira, Bobby Green, Joseph Duffy, Michael Johnson, Jim Miller, Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje twice, Eddie Alvarez twice, Max Holloway twice, Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor 3 fucking times, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje twice, Saint Denis definitely has not fought the dudes that Dustin Poirier has fought. And if you ask Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, if you remove his intro, Benoit Saint Denis' intro to the UFC, we might think really differently of him. He is on a hell of a run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight win streak, all finishes. Nicholas Stolze, rear naked choke. Gabe Miranda knocked him out. Ismael Bonfim had just come off that jump knee win where he face planted Terrence McKinney. Shout out Terrence, we love you here. But he knocked out Ismael Bonfim, went out there, TKO Thiago Moises, and then in his latest fight, that was his entry into the top 15 where he head kicked Matt Frevola. Benoit Saint Denis was a grappler. He has not been fighting pro MMA for long either. Benoit Saint Denis made his pro MMA debut in 2019. He's been fighting for 5 fucking years and he's this good. That's incredible alone. Dustin Poirier has been fighting MMA for like 20. What these guys are good at. Dustin Poirier is an incredible boxer. Great power. Good vision. Probably the best check hook in MMA, his ability to pull and counter with his lead hand. He is a southpaw he's a right-handed southpaw, which means he has the ability it's a very ATT thing where he'll throw the jab, throw the straight left, and then come over the top with the right. Very good at that switch stance combination. Good jab, good power. Just his ability to stay composed when the bullets are flying around him. It's just something that not everyone has. In his latest fight with Justin Gaethje, it was mind you, Justin Gaethje's made tons of improvements, and he's already knocked out Justin Gaethje once. Very, very close first round, and then he gets caught with a head kick. That head kick would have knocked out anyone. It's Justin Gaethje. The dude's fucking dynamic and powerful as shit. But so is Benoit Saint Denis. Dustin Poirier is a black belt. He submitted Michael Chandler after going to war with him, and it was a very dirty fight from Chandler. He hurts Dustin Poirier with the headbutt in the first round, even though Dustin Poirier damn near finished him at the end of that first round. Poirier just in the pocket, in prolonged exchanges, he's just so composed. Good leg kicks. He's had hip replacements, so you'll see him try to head kick people, and it just like mechanically doesn't work. Decent takedowns, a little bit of suspect stuff with his guillotine jumping, but he's at 155. He could beat almost anyone in the stand-up. He was out there beating the shit out of Charles Oliveira until Charles Oliveira made it a MMA fight and not a striking match, and took his back, submitted him, took him down, but dropped Charles Oliveira, hurt him multiple times, buzzed Khabib in their fight. He's knocked out Eddie Alvarez, knocked out Justin Gaethje, went to war with Max Holloway in their second fight and kind of beat the shit out of poor Max. Dustin Poirier is Dustin Poirier. Benoit Saint Denis, what does he do well? Pretty much everything. Really, really good body kicks. Really, really good kicker, period. Good power with his hands. He is so fucking tough. He's another one of these dudes. This fight is just it's a battle of heart. What Benoit Saint Denis showed in his fight against Elizeu was just so much heart. The fight should have been stopped like 15 times. He just got his fucking ass whipped. Took the fight on short notice up a division and just got shit kicked. The difference between Matt Frevola and Dustin Poirier, it's a very, very big difference, in their abilities. Matt Frevola is great, but he's no Dustin Poirier. The way he caught Frevola exiting the pocket after a grappling exchange where Frevola thought he was safe. He was circling on the outside of the octagon. Benoit cut the angle, threw the head kick up, caught him with it, dropped him dead. And Benoit's just so tough. He's got good grappling. He could come out here and have a brawl with Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier is coming off of a knockout, and a pretty recent knockout at that, where, I think Dustin Poirier is probably his biggest weakness even today at such a high level is he's not really the most durable guy. He does get hurt, but his ability to, stay composed and, it's just so many battles. Eventually they catch up to you. Your mind may be clear. You may see things coming. You may feel confident. You're not getting your ego broken, but sometimes when you get touched, the lights go off. You just can't fucking control it. In this fight, I think Benoit Saint Denis can come out here, throw a lot of volume at Dustin Poirier. This is a 5-round fight. If the third round starts in this fight, this could look like the Dan Hooker fight. But then at the end of the fight, one of these dudes, Benoit's leaving on the stretcher, and Poirier is like, "Hey, bro, you got checked." But if you remember that Dan Hooker fight, Dustin Poirier almost got finished in the second round against the cage, where he was just Hooker, and this was Hooker at his best. Hooker is just throwing tons of stuff, and Poirier is just kind of rolling with the shots. He got clipped up. Even take a deep breath. Whew. He definitely got his bell rung there. Poirier comes from a camp that ATT is so good at game planning. Gamrot also on this card. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about him, but Dustin Poirier trains with the likes of Arman Sarukian. He trains with the likes of Gamrot. If anyone's going to give you good wrestling rounds in these divisions, it's going to be those two dudes. And Gamrot's like one of his main training partners. They're always training together. Benoit is so strong. He's so durable. He's so tough. But I think in boxing, he does still have those technical deficiencies when it comes to his defense. And Poirier, I think this should just be a pick'em fight, and I think the only reason why the odds are the way that they are is because Poirier just got knocked out. If that Justin Gaethje fight never happened, I think Poirier would be the favorite. But it is a quick turnaround, and Poirier's durability is the biggest question mark for me. But I think if this fight goes beyond the first round and a half, it could look very different. If we get a round 3 start, it's probably all Dustin Poirier, because we haven't really seen, outside of the Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos fight, we haven't really seen Benoit have to go outside of that first, second, third, fourth, fifth round. Benoit throws a lot of kicks that aren't set up, and I see Dustin Poirier catching him with a counter the same way he knocked out Justin Gaethje in their first fight. And that's just what's replaying in my mind. The way that Benoit Saint Denis spams those body kicks, Dustin Poirier is just going to close the distance, hit him with the straight shot, hurt him. And if you shell up against the cage. He was shelling up against the cage against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. You shell up like that against Poirier, hellfire is going to rain on you. Give me another upset in Dustin Poirier. I think, and if he loses, he's probably going to retire. If he wins, he might retire. But fuck, I'm riding with the boy from the boot. Give me the American. Give me Dustin Poirier. He's one of my favorite fighters, and if he loses, it'll break my heart. I'm also picking with my heart here. Dustin Poirier is the pick. 4th round TKO. Don't want to say anything. He's going to be pillared up against the cage. Poirier is going to be raining shots. He's going to make him crumble. All right, guys, you made it. We made it. If you fast forwarded all the way up to here, I hate you. We got the champ, Sean O'Malley, taking on Marlon Cheeto Vera. Sugar versus Cheeto. Will it be salty? Will it be sweet? This is the rematch. Odds on this fight. Sean O'Malley is the favorite, minus 285. Cheeto is coming as a plus 230 dog. Pretty heavy favorite, and he is the biggest favorite on the main card. Even though he's the one that got finished our last fight. And I rewatched that fight just a little bit ago, and I forget what the minute mark was, but Cheeto throws one leg kick, hits Sean O'Malley in the knee, and the fight completely changes. I think this fight, Sean O'Malley is definitely getting better. He took a long layoff. There was that PED issue that seems to be completely forgotten about by Sean O'Malley. Well, Cheeto has just kind of been, meddling since then in very weird fashion. He's coming off of a win against Pedro Munoz, where a lot of people scored the fight for Pedro Munoz, but I think it was kind of clear that Cheeto won. Prior to that, he lost a split, which is a bad card against Corey Sandhagen, where he got outclassed. But before that, he was on a hell of a run. Those three fights was Frank Yeager, where he hit him with that jumping kick up the middle, that kind of teep kick up the middle. And then the fight with Rob Font was his most impressive performance, in my opinion. And then the head kick of Dominic Cruz after dropping him like 2 or 3 times. That 3-fight run was just awesome. Cheeto's such a strange dude. Just his game is very weird. Sean O'Malley is a guy that he's had a lot of injuries in his career that kind of seemed to be forgotten about. The Sukum, I think it was the Sukum Top fight where he was hurt and he was on his back, or maybe it was the Tyrion Ware fight, one or the other, where he was on his back and his opponent just grappled with him instead of making him stand back up. But he looked good against Petr. That was the turning point for me, where I was like, okay, Sean O'Malley is not a can crusher. Yeah, he's going to crush cans because he's good, and he's going to beat dudes that are not as good as him. He's going to crush overmatched competition. But the fight against Petr showed me that the dude is very, very fucking high level. And then the pullback counter, the way he iced Aljamain Sterling, and most impressively kind of just shucked off a lot of those takedowns, and his title winning performance was very, very impressive. Their last 2 fights are so different against such different opponents. Pedro Munoz versus Aljamain Sterling, just very different guys. But looking at this fight, this is a definitely styles make fights type of fight. I think Cheeto is a guy that is very suspect with his grappling defense. He is very low output, and I think his problem, again, he has that young veteran mentality where, like, if you're not hurting him, you're not beating him. Look at the Rob Font fight, for example. Number one, I think Cheeto is the most durable dude in the UFC, period. Not just like durable like Max Holloway, where he doesn't get dropped, but like he doesn't even get lumped up. It's fucking weird. He doesn't have lacerations. He doesn't bleed, doesn't get black eyes. I don't know what it is. It's fucking weird. The dude took like 300 something significant strikes against Rob Font. I think Cheeto's defense is also very slept on. He's very good at parrying. He's very good at blocking and pillaring. He's got very good vision when things come his way. He's, keep his hands up and he keeps his hands in the right place. He's very good at parrying shots. Not a lot of stuff hits him real clean. And when it does, he doesn't get too buzzed up. Sean O'Malley is a very, very very good striker, very athletic, very good timing. He's one of the best back foot counter punchers in MMA period right now. That pullback right hand that he iced, next to someone like Conor McGregor, just a very good back foot counter striker. Very good kicks. He was crushing Cheeto in their first fight with kicks. This fight is just very strange because it's one of those where I don't think Cheeto is the best fighter in this division. I actually think Merab Dvalishvili is the best fighter in this division. And I think the second best one might be Patchy Mix. But someone as durable as Cheeto, and someone is, Sean O'Malley is durable enough, but he definitely got his bell rung against Petr. But when I mean durable, not just like from concussive blows, but bodily, Sean O'Malley is he's like a hot rod, but one little thing goes wrong and it's pieces are flying off as it goes 100 miles an hour down the road. Where Cheeto is like one of those Humvees where, yeah, he's not fast, doesn't handle well, but he's got a big fucking gun strapped to the roof. And you're going to have to hit him with the RPG. You're going to have to hit him with the RPG to make him, fucking hurt. I just don't recall. I can't, doing tapes today, I can't recall seeing Cheeto buzzed ever. I've seen Sean O'Malley buzzed. I've seen his legs hurt. I've seen him get injured. Cheeto's a dude that just, like, I don't know why, but MMA doesn't hurt him. It's weird. Cheeto has a very dexterous kicking game, very good power with his boxing, very good power with his kicks. He has the ability to set up shots. Look, the shots he hurt Rob Font with over and over again, the shot he knocked out Dominic Cruz with, all it takes is one punch from Cheeto. Even his ground and pound, like, the Sean O'Malley fight, his ground and pound, like, it was kind of like, hey, I'm checking the kicks. Okay, now that your leg is busted, I'm going to walk forward. I'm going to hit you with some more kicks. Oh, you're on the ground. Okay, 2 elbows from Cheeto, and Sean was just done, I think Sean O'Malley has the ability to hurt an overextending Cheeto Vera. I think if the fight ends early, it's Sean O'Malley. I think if the fight goes late, things can be different. Sean O'Malley has good wrestling defense, and he may shoot some takedowns here. In his time off, I think he even had I think he even competed against Gilbert Burns and on UFC Fight Pass and some grappling event that I didn't watch. But to me, this is one of those styles make fights things where, like, if you're not getting Cheeto out of there and you're just hanging around with him, the more and more dangerous he becomes and the more and more reads he's able to make. I think I think Sean O'Malley is a little more slick than someone like Corey Sandhagen, but I think all around at MMA, Corey Sandhagen is much more crafty with his striking setups and his wrestling setups, and that's what really, really, lost Cheeto that fight against Corey were the takedowns. But in a striking match, tit for tat, Cheeto can beat anyone at bantamweight because nobody can really hurt him. And if I think like a armor-plated Humvee is the perfect description, where he's not the fastest, but the dude's so durable, and he's got a rocket launcher. Anything he throws at people is going to hurt him. I think Sean O'Malley doesn't check leg kicks. Cheeto's going to probably go out there and just kick his legs to bits again, kick with him for a round and a half or 2 rounds, and then start letting his boxing go and see what happens. Sean O'Malley really, really wants this one back, so he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He's going to be fucking sharp. He looks so sharp against Aljamain Sterling. It's also kind of a vibes pick where, like, MMA is just so fucking weird that some dude that shouldn't really be fighting for a title outside of the champion wanting that one back. Also, sidebar, did you see Twitter flagged Sean O'Malley, or sorry, X-flagged Sean O'Malley for misinformation because he said he was undefeated, which is just funny. But give me Cheeto to lose 3 rounds of this fight and then just injure Sean O'Malley in some weird way, because Sean O'Malley is just kind of, don't want to use the term weak, but like, I just don't think Sean O'Malley's body, his legs, his arms, his head, I just don't think he can have a 5-round fight with Cheeto. If the Cheeto that fought Rob Font shows up this Saturday on the 9th, he's going to beat Sean O'Malley. It just depends on what Cheeto shows up. If the Cheeto that fought Pedro Munoz shows up, probably lose. It probably just get out-volumed, get his head snapped back a lot, never really be in too much trouble, but get hit with some really, really clean counters. Cheeto's got also more to fight for. He's got like a family. One of his daughters is like disabled and shit. And now I'm going way off on a tangent, but like Cheeto's an immigrant from Ecuador. Like a win for Cheeto probably means a lot more to him than a win, for Sean O'Malley. Like I think a win for Cheeto changes his whole family's life. Again, he's got a daughter that's like severely disabled. And I think, again, Cheeto hopefully Cheeto's hungry. And I think, yeah, Cheeto's just going to be too durable and be too damaging. Give me Cheeto to win some weird stoppage that people are going to say is like fluky again, probably in like the 4th or 5th round. Or maybe Sean gets tired. We haven't really seen Sean in the 4th or 5th round. Maybe Sean just gets tired and ends up on his back and gets elbowed or something. I don't know. Give me Cheeto in a weird late fight stoppage. And I'm probably completely wrong. That's the show, guys. There's a sign. Check the kick.